start immediately.
Well, both of those items I've got some notes on. After we've done these recognitions, I'm going to speak to a couple of things and we'll see if that's satisfactory for what you were asking for.
Well, why don't we just add it as a discussion item, and then that's a good place for you to give your notes.
Because both issues are, well, not so much the superintendent, but the merit issue is going to take some time and discussion. I mean, we're going to regroup on that.
Yeah.
As far as what's going on with Mr. Witt, I was going to speak to it. Do you have a motion?
Yes, I made a motion to add two agenda items. So that the first one was Ken, or our superintendent search process. And then the second one is to add a discussion item as item 9D on the possible sale of the facility located at 500 East Kelly's Road. Again, I think a discussion item is the proper place for us to discuss that, so that we can do it while following our procedures.
Mr. President, I have a question in regard to that. What does the discussion, you had something in mind then, what are your thoughts to have discussion about for those things? You had said you were going to have discussion about it, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I had planned to, I mean, we had moved another administrative reports up because I wanted to speak to Mr. Witt's resignation and what's going on with merit.
Okay.
But I don't think an administrative report is the proper place for that. It needs to be a full board discussion.
Is there a second to that
It needs to be a
motion?
work session.
Well, that's it.
I would like to have,
Right, so we can discuss adding a work session during a discussion section, but we have to add a discussion section.
It's gonna be a very short discussion,
That's
pretty
fine.
much.
So let's add it.
well, I would like to have discussion about it. How are you planning to? I just was curious what your thoughts were about it.
Well, that was what I was intending to do, but there's a motion on the floor to add it to the agenda. That is the current motion.
That's a discussion.
It'd be a very short discussion, so I'm okay with that.
Well, I'm okay with, yes, I would like to, I'll second it. Yes, I would like to discuss it.
Okay. I just don't want that to take over the meeting, and it's important issues, don't misunderstand me. But we will cover.
Yeah,
this.
so
Okay.
at 9C and 9D, it's after all of the other discussion items.
Wait, what was 90?
9C would
After
be.
you pass BOCES.
Okay.
Right, so after the UPass BOCES, we'd be discussing superintendent search process, and then after that, the facility at 500 East Kelly's Road.
Okay. Pardon? Yeah. Okay, we've got a motion and a
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
and a second on the floor. Roll call.
Barkley? Aye.
Hold on, let me back up. We've got a motion to include Ken Witt and Merritt as part of the agenda. Roll call.
Superintendent search.
Superintendent search.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are we just voting
Do you
on?
want me to,
maybe
you want
I'll-
me to reread my motion?
Well, let me, go ahead and read it.
Okay, so I'm motioning to amend the agenda to add two discussion items. The first is to add a discussion item to the agenda around the superintendent search process as item 9C. The second is to add a discussion on the possible sale of the facility located at 500 East
Okay,
Counties Road as item 9D.
I apologize. Okay, everyone heard her motion. Roll call.
Barkley? Aye. Bates?
Aye.
Kimbrell?
I wanted to separate those two. So I'll just say aye.
We can't hear you.
Aye.
Patterson?
Reed? Aye. Mr. Holtz?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, next item is the district community spotlight.
Don't we have to approve the agenda? For
No,
the-
yes, we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Barkley?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Kimbrell? Aye. Patterson?
Aye.
Mr. Holtz?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Okay, those of you that are here in recognition of, pardon? Yeah, I am. But I'm gonna find out where.
Speak up.
Can you speak up, please?
Could, everyone that is here for the recognition of the students, tonight, where are you? Okay, all right. Well, go ahead and have a seat. I just wanted to make sure, everyone is here. Okay, the Board of Education would like to congratulate the following students for winning their school spelling bee and advancing to the next round in the 2025 Colorado State Spelling Bee, which was an online spelling bee that each of the students participated in on February 20th. As I call your name, could you just stand up and remain standing till we get through the names? All right, first one, Ember Reynolds. Okay. She, pardon?
She's sick.
Oh, I didn't know that. Anna, hope I don't butcher this, Claydeck?
Oh, yeah.
From Columbine, fourth grade student Lila Hardman. Fourth grade student Finley Kentner. And at the middle school, eighth grade student Elijah McKinney. And Rylan Gray. Well, let's give them all a general round of applause. Good job, kids. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Wait,
Uh,
wait, hold on.
Yes.
Cookies, here.
We have a picture. Here.
Be faster than.
Got enough?
You know, today when the computer spells and spell corrects and everything, my spelling bee quality has gone downhill. It's so good to see these kids going uphill. So good job. That's, I'm very impressed. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Okay, next item, administrative reports. Item A, Board of Education reports. Does anyone have anything to report?
I do.
Okay,
Well, it looks like, so Nicole Ayers, who graduated from Woodland Park School District, is actually, if all went off correctly, currently on her way to the International Space Station. The mission time was set to launch at 5:45 our time. Yeah. So that went off. I didn't get a chance to check on that, but.
so it's supposed to be in the air now.
Yep, yeah, on its way to the International Space Station. So I just wanted to wish her and the rest of the crew a safe flight and mission, and then and just express our pride that Woodland Park Zone is in space. That's cool.
Very good. There was a couple nice pieces on
Yeah.
television about that. Thank you. Others?
Well, I was gonna have that, but I'm so glad you did. I have another one, so thank you, Keegan. Going forward, all of our board packets will be posted on the district website 24 hours prior to each meeting. These will be located under the meetings tab, and you can find them today, so.
Thank you.
Others? No other reports? Okay. Item B, Superintendent Report. Let me begin this. most of you know Aaron Salt. He was our chief operating officer. In the event that there was a change of superintendent, he is the interim superintendent, so his position has changed. We look forward to working with Aaron. We've worked with him in the past, and it'll be a good relationship. So welcome aboard, Aaron. Thank you.
So got a few comments I'd like to make here. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the board for this opportunity. I want to take a moment to express how excited I am and honored I am to serve as the interim superintendent. Over the last 2 years, I have grown to love this community and our schools and our staff. We have an incredible leadership team across the district, and I'm proud to continue to work with them and lead this team. I know there have been several rapid changes in the last few weeks. However, I want to assure you that we are committed to focusing on our students and their academic achievement at this time, maintaining as much stability as we can for the remainder of the year. We're also committed to being good stewards of the tax dollars. We're committed to transparency.
Excuse me a moment, sir. We won't have any of that tonight, folks. We just got to be cordial here and polite. If we continue to have these, we'll clear the room out. So please be polite. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So good. In addition to that, and these aren't in my notes, I had a conversation with Miss Barkley before this and just wanted to talk to her and let her know just as much as I want to let everyone here know that I understand there's been a lot of broken trust over the last few years, and I am committed to working to help restore that. I know that I will not be a long-term solution here, that I'm in an interim place, but while I'm here, I'm going to work to do everything that I can to restore the reputation of this district and the community. I've already started to set up meetings and reach out to community leaders to begin that process. So when I say that I'm committed to doing this work, to rebuilding trust and transparency, it's meaningful. And I hope that you'll look back in a few months and realize that the words that I'm saying tonight, you'll be able to hold me accountable to. With that, is Lindsay still here or did she step out?
She stepped out.
I was going to say we had the results from our Name the Campus survey. I was going to let her do it because she's been so jazzed about it, but she's not here, so I get to say it instead. So we ended up with almost 240 responses to our survey. Of those responses, 40% were from parents, 40% were from students, and then about 20% from staff. And with 60%, Woodland Park Junior Senior High School is the winning name for the campus, so we're excited about that moving forward. That's all that I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're up to public comment now. Please be aware that any personnel or individual student matters are considered confidential under Colorado law, and it is out of respect of the law that our employees and students that we require those discussions take place privately in executive session. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes or a total of 15 minutes total for a particular topic. The intent of public comment is to give the Board of Education the opportunity to hear your comments. However, the board will make no decisions or take no action on public comment during this meeting. And let me just remind everyone, I would please ask everyone to be cordial and let's have adults in the room and begin this. How many have we got?
Total of 24.
Oh my goodness.
And I do apologize. I missed printing the page 8 through 20. So, but I did go through and renumber it. So.
Go ahead.
Never.
No, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, if we were to have 2-minute. No, you missed the whole sentence. The whole sentence. Then we can hear from more people. That's all I was going to say. It was just a thought.
I shouldn't have brought it. We're gonna start through this and see how good we can do.
All right. So, First one is actually scratched out, so. We are going with Bill Brown.
The last time I was here, and the last time I spoke to this Board of Education, it was actually at the meeting where Mr. Witt was hired as our district superintendent. And I mean, to be very clear, at that meeting, I offered my opinion, and that's what it was, that he was not the right person for the job. And I made a request, and it's the same request that I would like to make here tonight. Please take the time to go through a proper superintendent search. As part of this process, I would like to also say that please create a committee that is composed of community members from both in the city of Woodland Park and from the county, including those who do not have children in our district, business owners, high school students from Woodland Park High School, except now it's Woodland Park Junior Senior High, and Merritt Academy. Parents from each of these schools, each of our schools, Columbine, Summit, Woodland Park Junior Senior High School, and Merritt Academy. Staff from each of these same schools. And I would additionally ask, please don't just pull from the pool of people who line up with where you are in terms of ideology. Instead, I would ask that this committee be a true cross-section of our school district community. Now, as I say that, and that is my basic request, let me be clear that I recognize ultimately the authority to hire a new superintendent belongs to you. And the committee that I'm asking you to create would simply be a group of individuals who care for our schools and want what is best for our students. They would be people who would want to be involved in a thorough vetting process for the next Woodland Park School District Superintendent. But again, ultimately, the choice is yours, and they would simply be a group that gives you some guidance and some thoughts and some insight. Thank you for allowing me to have the time to make this request.
Thank you, Bill.
Stephanie Merle.
I've been here in a while, I know, but if I hear you would all. Please excuse the board member Barkley from the statement I'm about to make. Ms. Barkley, who has on numerous occasions called to this board to check its integrity, ethics, and intentions. Many of the people in this district and here tonight asked the BOE prior to the hiring of the superintendent who made a hasty exit as of about 24 hours ago. We asked the BOE to do a proper superintendent search, like Bill said, and in good faith hire someone qualified for the position. Given the intervening months and the disgraceful events of last week, there is one thing we can be sure of. You failed. Utterly failed. From where I stand, there are only two reasonable explanations for that failure. One explanation, you came into your elected position with an agenda. The agenda was to harm the school district as much as possible in order to help public education fail. Do you folks know what public education is? Public education is children. The only reason for any of this is the children. If you came into this elected position with the intent to harm public education, you came into this position of authority to harm children. It's like you don't even like kids. The second explanation, you are too incompetent to function as an elected body with the sole job of managing the superintendent of schools. One employee, one. I certainly have no faith or confidence that any one of you is fit to continue in your elected position. And I certainly wish you were no longer in a position to harm my child and every other child in Woodland Park School District. If there's a shred of integrity among you, you should consider the same hasty exit I mentioned. If you cannot own your own mistakes, assuming they were mistakes. At the very least, do a proper superintendent search in the days ahead. Look for someone who is qualified. Find a person who actually believes in traditional public education. That is what the parents of these schools you ostensibly represent chose, after all. Find someone with fresh eyes, a fresh outlook. Someone who isn't more of the same. Maybe even someone who cares about kids.
Gene Rogers.
Tonight I wanted to speak about the letter that was sent to district families yesterday afternoon. For those who may not have received it, it announced Ken Witt's departure date was moved up to yesterday from April. I took this as an acknowledgement that Ken was not serving our school district well. The letter also said, and I want to quote, "As we navigate the loss of sales tax funding from the city, we want to take a moment to recognize the incredible dedication of our staff and the support of our families. We cannot adequately express how thankful we are for such an amazing staff and a community that values and supports our schools." That was really beautifully written, and I thank you for it. To that end, I would like to suggest some very concrete ways you could really demonstrate this recognition and back it up with action. First, you could immediately undo the changes that were made in the staff handbook that actually undermined staff's dedication under Ken's leadership. This could include reinstating curriculum study committees such that the teacher's valuable input is recognized. This could include reinstating up to 8 days of bereavement leave, which was reduced to 3, so that teachers feel valued as whole people. And if we can afford it, this could include reinstating retirement incentives and professional growth incentives that were removed as well. Secondly, and this one is so easy, you could immediately undo the change made to an administrative policy under Ken's leadership that specifies that staff's hair coloration must be natural hues. It's such an easy thing that says to staff, we recognize you as a valued adult in the room that can make their own choices. Third, commit right here and right now to a search for a qualified superintendent that has experience in bridge building and mediation, such that we can begin to heal this fractured community. Commit to holding our superintendent accountable to executive expectations, especially the one about listening to the community. Fourth, commit right here and right now to dismantling the culture of fear that has been created for our staff and to finding a leader who leads with positivity and inspiration. Fifth, start the process of developing a strategic 5-year plan that involves all stakeholders. Sixth, please honestly evaluate the role our district's attorney has played in so many missteps, including the one that just cost us $3 million in sales tax revenue. There is a real opportunity here to follow up your words with immediate and meaningful action. Please have the courage to take it.
I believe this name is Jim Clayton.
Oh, he did?
So he might have just signed up.
You might have been one of the ones that signed in, thinking it was like a attendance roster.
Patty Shed.
Well, she's coming up. Let me ask everyone to hold off on the applause. We're going to try to get as many of these people in here as we can. Thank you, but please keep that to yourself and we'll move along. We'll do well. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at tonight's meeting. I'm a 26-year resident of Woodland Park, And for 15 years of that time, I had kids in the school district. I always thought we had great schools. We had some minor problems here or there, but I always felt listened to and that parents had a voice. I believe that teachers always had my kids' best interests at heart, never felt they pushed an agenda or particular political view. My kids developed a love of learning and the skill of learning how to learn, I think critically. When the new board took over in 2021, promising a no politics school and to give parents control over their child's education, I could see almost immediately that their actions did not match their words. Merit was immediately brought in, as was the American Birthright, retaining sixth graders at the elementary schools, closing Gateway, moving seventh and eighth graders, so on and so on. Most decisions were sent out on a Friday afternoon email or 24 hours before a school board meeting as an agenda item with little or no input from teachers, parents, or the community. Seeing that the board, and this is except Keegan, had an agenda and that it was not going to be influenced by anyone. They hired Kinwit, who carried out their agenda with the aid of Brad Miller and Aaron Salt. I was frustrated by these outsiders coming to our community, driving our beloved teachers, many students and families away with their actions. Even friends of mine, retirees who have been here years, moved away, citing how the community felt different and divisive. Wanting to find a way to bring back the schools I loved and seeing how opaque the district financial documents were, I recently started submitting core requests to the district for one small part of the budget, attorney fees. And what I have found in the 3 months I've looked, I've only looked at November, December, and January, the district has spent over $55,765 in attorney fees, $33,890 just in January alone. I'd like to know how much it's spent since 2021, since the board took office. I learned other things from the attorney invoices that I'm not going to share, but there's some eye-opening things that are in there. After seeing this in the proposed resolution on the sale of the middle school to Merit, I decided to do a little research on the business side of charter schools. We already suspect that Brad Miller and the other attorneys, oh shoot.
Thank you.
Diane Reed.
My name is Dr. Diane Reed. I've lived in Woodland Park for over a decade and sent my children to Woodland Park schools, where I was once a PTO leader. As you know, a very big secret was leaked to the public recently, but it's not the one you think. Last month, Woodland Park was ranked number 3 on a long national list of the worst towns in America by an extremely popular non-political website that reached over 80 million unique viewers with that article. Their overall readership is in the billions. Our number 3 worst ranking was only eclipsed by the violent KKK stronghold and cult bastions of Moscow, Idaho, and Harrison, Arkansas. The website advised readers to not only refrain from ever moving to Woodland Park, but to not even think about visiting or spending tourist dollars here. Why? It all comes down to the outrageous town corruption backed by big money, such as our school board, that this article states have been impacted by those who are greedy and evil. Their words, not mine. So, congratulations on helping to destroy our national reputation with your shady backroom deals, deceptive accounting, reckless building closures, resource misuse, and and disgusting disdain for the children and teachers in our public schools that you've shown all along. No wonder you're constantly losing student enrollment. This article also pointed directly to Karis's influence on our town. Their words, not mine. And for those who love to whine that the school board is not backed by Karis, try explaining the large financial campaign contribution they gladly accepted from a donor that was revealed to be masking a Womack-based organization. Yes, there are receipts. With the exception of Keegan Barkley, who's shown stellar integrity and courage during her service to the school board, it is high time for the rest of you and all your associates to take a huge cue from the former superintendent and step down forever from any further involvement in our school district.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just shared with you, let's move through this so we can get more people speaking. Please do not respond after the speakers. Go ahead.
I just want to start by saying, my name is Mary Ward. I'm a parent and a community member. And I want to thank our teachers who are the true heroes of this unfortunate era in our district. You all have done beautiful work in spite of a hostile work environment and a humongous lack of administrative support. Your love for our kids shines through and is clearly probably the only reason that you're still here. So I am eternally grateful for your contribution to our community and our kids' lives. I'm disappointed in each of you, except Director Barkley, and your failure to represent and advocate for our students. You abuse your power. If I choose to be generous with my assumptions, you're grossly negligent and incompetent. If I allow myself to believe the writing on the wall, you are a lot more cunning and deceitful and careless than that. We had so much here. Students, staff, and community was unified and integrated. Mr. Salt, I don't know you. So I don't know yet if I can trust you, but I think it's important to note that everything you just promised us, we already had before this happened. So forgive me if I feel like your words are worthless right now. I hope your actions speak for themselves. The way this board has managed funds is atrocious. The way you've driven out teachers, safe adults that our students trusted, is probably a lot worse. As a constituent and a taxpayer, I don't trust you, period, to make decisions for me, my family, my child, or the people who spend their careers and their lives up here making sure that my kid is educated and feels safe at school. I don't know any other organization that puts people in leadership who are actively rooting for the downfall of the institution they serve, so that's crazy. But Ken Witt resigned, and I sincerely hope each of you do the same, with the exception of Director Barkley, who has tirelessly sought wisdom and input from the community like a board director probably should. You all have allowed, or rather forced, this community to fall into shambles. You've stolen our resources, our buildings, our money, all things that should go towards enriching our kids in our schools. Since most of this board doesn't listen to their constituents, I hope the community hears me when I say, please stop this. If these individuals don't have the courage to resign, then I hope our community has the courage to oust them and start rebuilding from this mess. And another thing, I would love to leave religion out of this, as I believe that is an incredibly personal journey for every individual, and I respect everyone's right to practice their religion. But since y'all keep bringing it into everything, I would just love to point out that you're hypocrites when you claim to be following Jesus. You steal from the poor and give to the rich. You use your power to abuse the marginalized. It's yucky, and you should probably stop because everyone can see through you. And then I just want to give, if anyone wants to make any noise, because I'm done talking now.
Again, Ruth?
Yes.
A lot of good talking points have already been made. I want to talk about transparency. And I want to say you guys have been incredibly transparent. But unfortunately, it's just not in the way that we need. Your character, your actions, what you're trying to do, completely transparent. We all see right through all of your lies, all of your grifts. It's very interesting to me that a former superintendent resigned the day before a school that he has a vested interest in was going to be going on sale, and that his vested interest would be impacted. Sounds like maybe somebody was trying to step out of the way of a conflict of interest charge. I'm just asking questions, you know. But I will say, you guys are a disgrace. And that is, of course, not including Director Barkley, who has been, as everybody has already said, incredible, amazing, a hero to this community. You guys are the villains. And you guys have destroyed this community. Why did you force our hand? Why did you make us take that tax away? You really think that we wanted to take money away from public schools? Every single one of us did not want that to happen. But you guys would not show us where the money's going. And I know why that is. And I'm hoping that maybe the Attorney General, with a couple of phone calls that I've noticed is happening, will maybe get an idea as well. More disappointing for me, guys. Bates, you should resign. You stood up there in City Council and said, I'm sorry, I accidentally put that on the action item, and it's going to be a discussion. But then, it actually wasn't even a discussion item, was it? Because you didn't want to hear any discussion about it, because you know what's going to happen, don't you? You know what the community is going to do to you. They're going to tear you to pieces, as they should.
Thank you. Your time is up, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear you.
Sean Pekron?
All right, welcome. Thank you for having me. So I am a 27-year resident of Woodland Park. I am a retired teacher out of Woodland Park Public Schools. I am a Spanish teacher and athletic director at Merit Academy. I have 4 kids in the district, Merit Academy. I have a freshman boy going to play football for Woodland Park High School next year. My daughter is a first-team academic All-State for Woodland Park High School swim team. So with that being said, I will start. That's my bio. Okay. Greeting, esteemed Conservative Board of Education members. Thank you for your service, your perseverance, your willingness to address issues that other boards of education have not. You have stood virtually alone, underappreciated, unthanked, or not enough, and under constant attack. Know that you are appreciated. Know that you have people that back you. Know that your work to better this district and community via unprecedented and numerous endeavors is also appreciated. You made multiple historic teacher raises happen. You have dealt with questionable curriculum in some of our district's classrooms, addressed unneeded sexual ideologies in our hallways and libraries. You brought in traditional American history standards that teach our most accurate American history. This conservative BOE, Board of Education, added 2 high school sports teams to the offerings for our kids. You saved the taxpayers of Teller County tax dollars by making the super tough decisions to consolidate schools way under capacity due to declining enrollment that started before your positions on the board. Unpopular decisions that other boards of education talked about doing, but never took actions. You did. Under your tenure, Woodland Park High School won a state championship in cheer, had a historic football team that had the most ever wins in the history of Woodland Park, and made outstanding growth in district test scores. You had the foresight, empathy, and valor to charter a new school, a school that is projected to grow and serve a large portion of our community and gives a choice to our community, an added asset to our community. You listened. You fought for our kids to retain the tax dollars for our students, families, and community. Not once or twice, but multiple times. As a teacher, father, and community member, I am grateful, and I am far from alone in that sentiment. Our newly elected city council had a seemingly single reason. That reason was fulfilled on Monday morning. You all have a reason as well, and you sit where you are for a reason. Much nobler reasons than across town in council chambers.
They cut him off.
To quote Mark Twain, you know the things that
Quiet.
It's time.
President, you
Second
that it went off.
That's time. If we're all gonna yell, my kid got those good grades.
Gary?
Why don't we have some decorum? Why is everybody so?
Stop stealing my kid now.
They just wanted fairness.
That's all. They cut off.
David, it was because they cut him off right.
I let others finish their thought, their immediate thought.
There's so many dynamics.
Well, one down, 5 to go. It is a step forward to be saying goodbye to the worst non-resident, part-time, no experience superintendent of Woodland Park School District. Everyone knows the losses, but I'll rename them. Loss of an elementary school, loss of a middle school, loss of a huge percentage of our teachers, loss of hundreds of students, loss of families in Woodland Park, and loss of financial stability. It was your actions and inactions that brought on all of these losses. And yes, it was your actions that caused the loss of the sales tax. The public school system will only survive if we say goodbye to Brad Miller, Aaron Salt, and finally get 3 new board members in November. Board members who actively participate in district issues instead of being puppets for the Brad Miller agenda. Members who communicate, who are transparent, who are motivated to make the district financially sound, providing a better education for all children. And I will add that it is a total embarrassment that you had an audit that was a qualified opinion with 34 violations, so to speak. We can only hope to save our public schools.
Sierra Whalen?
Real quick, if anyone didn't get to finish their public comment and you would like to email it to me, I would love to read the rest of your comment.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sierra Whalen. I'm a parent of students in the Woodland Park School District and a resident of this city. I stand here tonight frustrated, disappointed, and frankly appalled at the situation we now find ourselves in. I did not vote to repeal the sales tax. I understood its importance. It's funding our public schools. And let's be clear, the city council was prepared to keep the tax in place. But that changed the moment greed entered the equation. The blame lies with whoever wrote the contract for the sale of Merit Academy and made the 1.09% sales tax a binding term in a 30-year agreement. That was a reckless, self-serving move that put our entire district's funding in jeopardy. And let's talk about the handling of this issue. If this was truly a mistake, if Mick Bates failed to change the wording from an action item to a discussion item, then he, along with those who drafted and approved the sale terms, bears responsibility for this loss. You cost our public schools $3 million per year. That's money that should have been supporting our students, teachers, and schools. And instead, it's gone because of poor decision-making, incompetence, or worse, intentional deception. So if you are a parent of a merit student or a parent of a Woodland Park School District student, do not misplace your frustration. The fault does not lie with the City Council, who chose to repeal the tax. It lies with the president of the school board, Mick Bates, Ken Witt, and whoever crafted the terms of this sale. Their actions led directly to the repeal of this critical funding source, and our children will pay the price. Our community deserves leaders who act in the best interest of all students, not just a select few, and we deserve accountability for this $3 million mistake. Thank you.
Aaron Hellstrom.
Good evening. City Council is creating division within our community by attacking the Board of Education, another officially elected governing body. Another term for these tactics employees is called social warfare. This term refers to the divisive and hostile interactions among social groups, exacerbated by sensationalists on social media and biased media coverage. As City Council and others within Woodland Park increasingly push to override the will of the people through an illegal emergency ordinance, the citizens will increasingly find themselves entrenched in ideological battles that seek to supplant the American way of life and the very fabric of our democracy. These attacks by City Council and others only seek to undermine the unity of our community united around our children. We the people must stand up to this type of tyrannical bullying that is detrimental to preserving our constitutional rights and freedoms. The Constitution was designed to promote a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It stresses the importance of civil discourse, the free exchange of ideas, and the protection of individual rights. However, social warfare threatens these principles by fostering an environment of hostility and division. According to a report by the Cato Institute, political polarization has reached unprecedented levels, with many Americans unwilling to engage with those holding differing views. This unwillingness to engage undermines the First Amendment guarantee of free speech and the right to assemble peacefully. That is why I'm calling on all Woodland Park citizens to let your voices be heard by calling and emailing City Council to let them know that we will not stand for this type of poor statesmanship. When City Council pulls a sales tax voted on by the people in 2016, reaffirmed by a vote on 5 November, they directly challenge the constitutional protections that allow for robust public discourse. The American Civil Liberties Union has warned that such actions can set a dangerous precedent, eroding the very rights that protect us all. The Constitution thrives on debate and disagreement. When these are stifled, the essence of democracy is compromised. Sensationalist reporting by keyboard warriors and biased narratives can inflame tensions and deepen divisions. This environment not only distorts public perception, but also encourages culture outrage, where individuals are more likely to attack one another rather than engage in constructive dialogue. We, the people of Woodland Park and Teller County, must take the necessary steps to ensure our voices are heard and that our elected officials adhere to the laws that govern their duties. City Council has no quasi-judicial or legal rights over the Board of Education to do this, let alone their justification after a March 6, 7-0 Council Kill Ordinance 1492. Yet here we are. City Council has now held an emergency meeting Monday and voted 7-0 to pull immediately the sales tax. Why now? Why is it an emergency when we have not sold the building to Merit? No action has been taken. Why now? In conclusion, City Council should be recalled because social warfare poses a significant threat to the Constitution and unity of our community and the American people. By fostering civil discourse, promoting media literacy, and holding platforms accountable, may I finish my last 3 sentences?
Time's up. Time's up.
Just 1 sentence.
1 sentence.
Thank you. It is imperative that we remember the values that unite us and strive to engage in respectful dialogue, ensuring that the principles of democracy endure for generations to come. Thank you.
Do I need to go to the ACLU again? Or getting cut off?
You got great decorum.
I left out the second half of my last name. That's a long one. Hello, my name is Allison Wallenhoff, and I'm a parent. I also have teaching experience, though I was never a teacher in this district. Thank you for getting rid of Mr. I'm short. There, is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Mr. Salt, you seem like a much kinder person, but I'm sorry, we shouldn't trust you either. You did for a time act as interim CFO during one of our many transitional periods, so the financial mess this district is in now is partially your fault. You share ideological and financial ties with some of the bad actors who have already left. There is no place for greed here in Woodland Park. I mean, look at our teachers. They could easily make $10,000 more by teaching down the pass. What could you do with an extra $10,000? They are here for our kids, as were the many, many fabulous staff and teachers we have lost. You have let yourself be blinded by your bias and your ideology, and pridefully refuse to listen to any dissenting voices. This needs to stop today. When you interview candidates for superintendent, make sure they have degrees in advanced educational administration. Make sure they have a vested interest in our children, an interest other than ideology or greed. These things are poisonous and are destroying us from the inside out. You, save for one, have lost the trust of this community. For years now, students have had to stand by and endure as you took things away from them. I'm not going to list what those are because people already have. You have allowed this to happen in order to favor a charter school that you aren't even in charge of. I don't have a drop of ill will towards Merit's students, teachers, and their families. We all must make the best choice for ourselves and for our families. But prioritizing Merit's interests, selling a public school facility that the taxpayers of this town pay for pennies on the dollar, it is unacceptable. Attempting to hold city council hostage is unacceptable. You can try and backpedal, but putting the old middle school building up for sale was an action item. And we have all seen what happens when you set your mind to something. You push it through, come hell or high water. Much of the resources have been given to Merit, but we know what happens when we prioritize greed. It is never enough. Greed is never ending and it is destructive. Again, I wish no ill will towards Merit, but from here on out, Merit families need to stand with the rest of the community and demand better from its educational leadership. We need to work together to remove these outside influences. For those within our community who are acting in self-serving ways, we must have the bravery to stand up to one another when we see that something is wrong and with compassion say enough is enough. One last thing. We know Kenwood donated more than $1,000 to Merit, but not to our public schools. Do any of you, our sitting Board of Education members, have any financial interests or have you made any donations to Merit Academy?
Thank you.
It was a yes or no question, Ms. Patterson. All right, thank you for your time.
Sorry. Hardman? Kara Bodie?
Good evening. I really don't have anything prepared, so if I talk really fast, I apologize. I have to say, I'm so disappointed that Mr. Wick wasn't here tonight. I wanted to congratulate him on being so incompetent, but having the ability to score a job running a school district with a math degree. His math obviously wasn't mathing. After skimming the audit, I am so disappointed. Because if you're a manager and in a restaurant and onions need to be chopped, you'd be chopping onions. If there was so much turnover in the business office, why wasn't he overseeing to make sure reconciliations weren't being taken care of? 6 months? That's ridiculous. And the travel expense and being unaccounted for, I do want to just briefly read. This is actually from one of your sites from when you were running, and I have it pulled up screenshot. Having worked for, I'm not going to say that because it will point out exactly who it was, but you'll know. I realize how important transparency is. The community has a right to know just how much or how money is being allocated, but to have a say in the budget. It is the responsibility of elected officials who serve on the school board to monitor these funds and be accountable to the taxpayers. Well, obviously you weren't overseeing it. So I can only think I'm not saying all of you, either you're embarrassed because you got caught, or you're embarrassed because you're realizing how incompetent you are. Mr. Saul, I don't know you personally, but I do know you're on the school board for District 20. I also believe you are rerunning based on a website that has a copyright of 2025. How is that not a conflict of interest is what I'd like to know. And as far as the city council meeting, I did watch it, rewatch it. I'm kind of wondering why Director Osterholz didn't mention that that was an error before Mr. Bates did. I do believe that Mr. Witt, being involved with his part-time job, making six figures and having all these allowances, I'm glad he's gone, obviously, and I'm very grateful that my son is graduating in May. Not because I'm glad he's graduating, thank God, it's thank God I'm done with this district. You all should resign. And you, Mr. Bates, pointing your finger, saying you need to be quiet, you want to talk about decorum, that wasn't very professional. So, thank you for your time. Not want to come back in this room. Caroline, you didn't want me here.
All right. First of all, I want to point out the reaction at City Council on Monday morning was not one of jubilation or celebration. It was not full of cheers. It was not full of applause. There was a collective sigh of relief. There were tears. I did hold the hand of the person next to me because we want you held accountable. No one wanted money taken from the students of this district, but the question was it getting to them in the first place? And I don't believe it was. People in this community don't want to hurt kids, but they want the people in charge of leading children to have integrity. The problem was that you were not being transparent about the money you're receiving. You're definitely favoring one group of students over the other, and that is not what the sales tax was for. Again, I've said it many times, I am not anti-charter. My kids went to a charter school. I served on the Board of Education at a charter school. I am pro-charter. I am against corruption. I am also wondering if any of the school board directors have a financial or other personal interest in Merit Academy. I would really like to know the answer to that question. Because in fact, giving Merit money, I'm gonna go scenarios. Usually I go data, but I have learned that you all aren't a fan of data and using that in a way that is effective. So giving Merit money to buy a school is like me giving my kid, when they were 5 years old, money to buy me a birthday present. My little kid goes to the store with me and he says, I want something, but I don't have money for it. Or maybe I do, but I don't want to use it. I want yours. And then after we leave the store, he says, here's your present. I bought this all myself. And I say, yes, you did, honey. You bought it all by yourself. And I give him a little pat on the head and I take the present because he wanted to do something good with it. The problem is that my scenario is about a 5-year-old child. And in your scenario, it's grown-ass adults trying to take our money to buy something they want and then present it to the community as something that's for all of us. That is not the case. They are not 5-year-old children. They have their own money. They do not need to steal from the community to get additional resources, and you do not have to help them. Continuing with my scenarios, let me guess how the last week has gone for all of you. Miller probably said, let's strike while the iron is hot. While they're not paying attention, let's get something that we want. Mick probably said, that's a great idea. Where do I sign? So we did, and then he got caught. And then someone, I'm guessing Miller, said to you, Mick, you gotta take the fall for this. You gotta say it was an accident. This is just, again, conjecture. But it didn't make sense because you already has a resolution and it had today's date on it. Cassie and Sue, I think you probably are just excited to still be part of the conversation. Director Barkley, obviously, I don't think you were included because you're the only one with a sense of logic or propriety. And David, and I am gonna finish my thought. David, I bet they didn't even ask you about any of this. They have been ignoring you even when you were board president from the beginning. And they've been using your sign and your eye to get to what they want. I bet they didn't ask you what you wanted or if you had thoughts on this.
Thank you, Aaron. I let you have some
You're
additional
right, you
thoughts.
did, and I appreciate the extra time. And I know that was all conjecture, but my guess is that this didn't come from any of you because they're all just puppets.
Let me jump in for a moment. Normally, this would be the end of public speaking. We were allowing 45 minutes.
Motion to extend 30 minutes.
Under the circumstances, and we haven't had this many people wanting to speak for a long time, we'll take this for an hour, so we got about another 15 minutes.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Please let everyone speak.
How many do we have left?
Some of us were down here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6.
Well, we're real close. I mean, 15 minutes and allow 5. Let's proceed ahead.
6 times 3, that's 18.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us speak tonight, and I really appreciate that you're willing to extend the time. My name is Nicole Brauckley. I'm a parent of 4. I went back this week and did a little research on how this board came together. And I stumbled upon an article where President Bates applied for a position on the board, and where he was questioned by the sitting board members on why he wanted to be on the board and what his philosophy was going to be. He said things like, parents are the ones that ultimately should decide over their children's education. Parents should have a say. Parents should have authority. President Bates said a lot of other really good things, and they all resonate with what we've seen again this last November, a majority of this community believes in. And I want to say there are things that we've seen in the last few years, because or despite of the disputes, because or despite Superintendent Witt, that have been good. We've seen the test scores of our children increase to something that I don't think anyone thought was possible beginning of the year. We've seen this board stand up against policies that the majority of this town do not believe in, and we appreciate that. However, there's 2 sides to the story. As much as we appreciate those things, we also demand accountability. There's 2 people that are responsible for our teachers and children losing $3.2 million a year. And that's the person who saw no other way than to prematurely leak a document. And that's the person who drafted this document and really felt that that number 5 on there was not going to cause a backlash. Now, we all have assumptions who those 2 people are. However, I would really like for once not to go off of assumptions and to receive information from this board. The whole community expects accountability. The whole community expects answers. I expect from this board to stand up, to include this community in working on these issues. The issues of the audit, the issues that were revealed last weekend. I expect the DAC to do the same. Their name is literally Accountability Committee, and I want to hear more from them in how they're working together with the district to make that happen. And I want us all to work together to rebuild that trust, because it has been broken. This community needs to heal, and we can all either be part of the solution or part of the problem. At the city council meeting, someone was talking about building bridges and about not making comments behind
You need to
people's
wrap it
back.
up, please.
I will. Tonight, we've seen that that same part of the community doesn't exactly hold up to that. I want us all to work towards that goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Henslinger.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about the superintendent role. It's really nice that Mr. Witt left a little bit early, but the truth is he was just a fall guy. He was absolutely terrible, but people have been telling you that before he was even hired. I apologize. You allowed him to meet with teachers and staff in the building and to get so angry over valid questions that then he cut off any questions in future meetings with teachers. You allowed him to walk away from millions in grants. You allowed him to bring a costly new curriculum in, even when the one that was working was already successful. You allowed him to give that to teachers with no time to prepare.
He gave it to them one afternoon, they had to start the next day. You allowed him to spend $150,000 on capturing kids' hearts, paying for it with ESSER funds, and lying to city council saying it came out of sales tax. You allowed him to talk with disdain to our teachers so that 30% of them left, including my husband who worked here for 21 years and loved every minute. You paid him an outrageous sum of money for part-time work, way more than any other superintendent of this size was paid. And you signed his contract without reading it, despite the fact that Director Barkley told you it was bad business practice. You raved over how great he was. You fawned over him. You said he did a fantastic job. So guess what? You have to own that now. You have allowed him to be the primary voice in the board meetings instead of you being the primary voice. He was the employee. You were the employer. You sat there while he sat on his phone for every meeting and ignored the community. You have praised him over and over again. So now he's gone, and you're going to say how great it is that you got rid of him. But the problem is that only happened because you felt the heat finally. Now you're replacing him with Mr. Salt, and I don't know you, and I appreciated what you said tonight. However, Mr. Salt, you were the CFO for part of the year, so you are responsible for those audit results. And you closed a public library that people begged you to keep open, which shows you do not listen to the community. If you want this community to respect you, you have to start listening. That means listening to every single one of us. You have to start looking for a superintendent who is qualified with an advanced degree in education administration. You have to listen to the teachers when they tell you there's a problem. You have to stop demonizing people by putting gag orders on them. And better than that, there's 4 of you that probably should step down.
I am Norm Michaels. In my 25 years as a resident here, I have seen some good and some bad come from our school boards. This is obviously a rough time that we're going through right now. And I pray to our God that prayer, calm minds, calm words will prevail. I trust our God to lead us to a resolution. When I don't know what's happening, I tend to react assuming the worst, as most of us react. I then feel foolish after learning that the worst is not what was going on after all. Please trust our God to smooth your way ahead.
Tamara Buttery.
Good evening, I'm Tamara Buttery, and everyone's been saying how many years they've lived here, so I think I've lived here longer than all the people who said they've lived here. So I win. No, lived here for 28 years coming up. And first of all, I want to applaud, and at the end, I hope I have time left over for the group to applaud all of the speakers who have come before me and been so brave and so far more eloquent than I am in stating the truth and stating their facts as things have unfolded. They are parents who have agonized over their students and their families and all the decisions on whether they should send their kids to school in Woodland Park or somewhere else. This is not something our families of our communities should agonize over. There should be choice. But for our families to agonize over whether they should send their kids, or it would be a good idea to send their kids to school in their own town, that's unconscionable. And you people, save Ms. Barkley, are the cause of it. You all and some community members are blaming our city council. And as so many have more eloquently said before me, it is not our city council who created the situation we're in tonight. It's you all. the directors save Barkley because she has been the voice of logic and reason since she came on this board. So you all need to own up to it, and I would love to see a public statement from each and every one of you that owns up to the accountability of what you did in losing that tax revenue. That might go a ways toward healing our community, a little ways, maybe. I'm seconding Mr. Brown, Ms. Merle, and their pleas for a proper superintendent search. You are a qualified candidate. I'm seconding Ms. O'Connell. I'm seconding Kashif on her proposed action items, for I believe it would be great for you, Mr. Salt, to review those, because you stated at the very beginning that you want work to rebuild the trust while you are here as the interim. The action items that Kashid had are excellent choices for you to get to work on, perhaps tomorrow morning. Then we've only heard 2 people speak who thought you guys are doing a great job. One of them happens to be Mr. Peckron, who is the husband of Ms. Peckron, who's the head mistress of Merit. That might be something you would want to think about. Then Aaron talked about polarization caused by city council. Polarization was caused by you people, not city council. I'm
Please
sorry,
wrap it up.
I've got one more. Yes, sir, Mr. Bates. The best thing, as most people have said, would be if you 4 just left. You might leave with a shred of your own dignity or not. But if you just left and left this school district up to the people who actually care about our community and our children and our families. Thank you.
Ryan Valero.
Good evening. I want to take a moment to address an issue that affects not just the financial health of our district, but more importantly, the quality of education and services our students receive, especially those in special education. The recent audit uncovered serious issues on how the district has handled BOCES flow-through funds. The district failed to correctly record revenue received from UPass BOCE, leaving a material amount of funding unaccounted for. And why? Because the grant account position was never replaced, creating gaps in oversight and accountability. This raises a critical concern. If the district is already struggling to track BOCES funding, how can we trust it to manage special education funding on its own? Special education funding is complex, and any mismanagement could directly impact the quality of services our students receive. Parents, teachers, and community members have every right to be worried. Beyond financial mismanagement, this board and administration have created an atmosphere of fear, mistrust, and helplessness. Instead of listening to parents and educators, you have dismissed us. Ms. Patterson, you made it clear that you believe it was your job to decide what was best for our children without ever listening to those of us who actually know our children. That disregard has left families feeling powerless. You're on the board, this board, and the UPass BOCES board. This board has done something even worse. It's divided this community. It has turned neighbors into enemies, fueled fights, and created resentment instead of bringing people together to support our children. This is not how school districts should operate. And so before I close, I have one last question. Do any of the past or present board members have financial interest in Merit Academy? This district needs accountability, transparency, and leadership that listens. The audit findings should be a wake-up call, but more than that, they should be a demand for change. It's time to heal. It's time for you to show parents and teachers respect, full respect. It's time to rebuild trust, and it's time to put our students first. Thank you.
Mike, not?
Good evening.
actually not stood up here. I ran against you, Cassie, but I haven't stood up here and talked before. I wish I didn't have to. I wanted to go a little bit down memory lane. 2 summers ago, I attended a city council meeting where David Illingworth spoke on behalf of the sitting board members other than Ms. Barkley, and went into city council. I remember it very clearly, and stated it was the Board of Education's position that they did not owe the city an accounting, that you read the IGA and the law with the sales tax to mean that you had zero obligation to report details. That was Mr. Illingworth on behalf of this board, other than Ms. Barkley. I was there. I don't remember the quotes, but that is very clearly what the intent of his statement was. This board renewed Mr. Witt's contract with no review. If I remember correctly, Ms. Barkley hadn't even seen the final version of the contract. I remember Ms. Kimbrell say, he's doing such a great job, we don't need to review it, or something to that effect. That happened. The annual audit comes out, and the level of incompetence and negligence in that audit is mind-blowing. It is absolutely astounding how that could occur, and it occurred under your watch. You had one employee to supervise and manage, and you failed so completely that that's the state of the financials that came out with the state audit. That is unforgivable negligence or incompetence, and I don't know which one it is. I can't speak to your motivations, but wow. Then during the city council shenanigans of the last week, let's remember, Thursday night, less than a week ago, city council voted to continue that sales tax. It was less than 24 hours later that that whistleblower, and thank you whoever you are, released that document. And I'm sorry, to blame it on a clerical error, Mick, is absolutely unacceptable and I believe untrue. That was not an item written up for discussion. You had full financial terms, you had dates. Those are the things that happen after discussion. That is, everybody in this community, I think, sees that. You know, I only have 30 seconds, but I'll say this last. I've been managing people for 25 years, and the one thing I know is the buck stops with the boss. That's you four. You are ultimately responsible for losing that sales tax. You were underhanded in your dealings with city council, and in the end, everybody can talk about healing and all the rest of this. You had one employee to supervise, and from the audit, not a single financial process is in place in this whole district. That falls on you all. And I would ask you all to very seriously consider resigning if your motivation is truly to heal this community. That's the only thing that will do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Nathan Williams.
Reverend Nathan Williams. And last time I wrote something, I went way over time, so this time I'm just gonna go stream of conscious. For the younger kids out there, like school-age kids, Ken Witt took a district with Riz that was giving mother down to an Ohio mid, and now it's a skibbity toilet. I'm a first-time caller and a long-time listener of what goes on with this board. And is it normal to have 3 armed guards at school board meetings with zip ties? Is that regular or just today? I don't know. Never been. Okay, yeah. But let's just talk about who was in charge until yesterday. I call him Double Dip Dimwit. He was earning $345,000 a year. The Denver superintendent makes $346,000 with 90,000 students. But it wasn't all coming from this district. No, it was coming from the Education Revision, BOCES. That's who was paying $175,000 on top of this. And guess what the BOCES did? They're the ones that approved merit in the first place. 4/5 of you, not you, were elected with the help of Andrew Womack Ministries, Truth and Liberty Coalition. And we've since had the worst superintendent in the history of Colorado since 1876. Ken Witt, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split shut. And if you want to know who the rumors are about, I spoke to the first assistant to the Attorney General at the office of the AG. His name's Billy Cyber, and he reports directly to Phil. My good friend Billy reports directly to Phil, and you're under a microscope right now. So, buckle up. You will be having a forensic audit to explain where all this money's going. You don't deserve the sales tax anymore. You put a poison pill in your real estate contract and you lost it. It was all your fault. Just so you know, the school is not worth $5 million, it's worth $35 million. And annual percent rates are not 2.5%, they're 5.25%. This is a fire sale on stuff that we, citizens and taxpayers, paid for. Nuh-uh, not today, not on our watch. 65% of your funding already comes from property taxes. 65% of our property taxes pay your funding, and they're at the highest rate they've ever been. And as been mentioned, BuzzFeed, 20 million subscribers and 100 million views, marked Woodland Park as the number 3 of the 63 creepiest towns in America.
You're wrong.
No, you're right. I'll give you the link, buddy. Decorum. You've had 36% teacher turnover under this board, and you've lost almost 300 students. That's 15%. So, my last thing, I just have one more song request. Resign. Thank you for your time.
Well, we made it in, well, a little over an hour. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing everyone to speak.
We really appreciate it.
Oh, you saved the worst for last. I'm sorry.
Okay, moving along here, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Sorry, one more amendment. The minutes from the last meeting state that I made a motion to approve the application for the treasurer's, the state treasurer's loan-free program. I did not make that motion. I don't know who did, but I did not. Minor adjustment to the minutes, that's all.
Noted, thank you.
I approve them with that amendment.
Just rewrite the minutes.
We can-
Do you know where
We can go back and look at that and get it revised, so you can either push the voting, the approval of the minutes to the next meeting, if you'd like, or you can approve it and we can just make the amendment that the appropriate name would be applied in the.
After the
minutes.
fact, that's fine.
Is that fine?
Yes, okay, so I move that the agenda be approved, but with the concession that my name will be crossed off as the motion maker for that action item.
Roll call?
Pardon me? We need to approve my motion or with the.
So we would need a second on your motion to amend the.
Second.
Okay, so you would need.
Okay,
to
that,
vote
we
to-
will need a roll call now.
Yes.
Barkley? Aye. Bates?
Aye.
Emerald?
Aye.
Patterson?
Aye.
Westerholz?
Aye.
And then we need to.
Now,
Now, back to the consent agenda. I have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Barkley?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Emerald?
Aye.
Patterson?
Aye.
Westerholz?
Aye.
Motion passes, motion carries. Okay, on moving down, discussion and information. We've got an audit update from Ms. Crouch. Courtney?
This is going to be very brief.
You know what? We just had a gentleman go to the restroom. Let's take a 2 or 3 minute break. It is, we'll restart this at 7:30. Thank you. Sorry.
So if we can make it. Mr. Salt to get on his. To get on, here he mentioned the meeting was, so you and her, said, oh, we already motioned it. And so that's why it was, like, I think it's on there. I don't know, in the past when I've emailed, I don't respond, I don't use responses. The only thing I had is, I think you said yes. Yes. And they kind of, yeah, we did motion it already, so then I was like, I take this in a second, so I apologize, I should have brought that up here so that it wasn't, I guess what I wanted to say is I felt like you were getting a lot of attention tonight than usual. And I just wanted to tell you I appreciate you and explain, I was like, I didn't get a text that said that we were mother and I had to look at it, so I'm grateful. It's been a it's a weird RSV, so and I was like, oh, so I'm not excited. No, I didn't know something. Let's try to change it. I wanted to tell like, let me have our story. That one was weird because we kept going to.
You know what you might do when the meeting's over? Somebody else can test it and let them know that you've given answer.
I will.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I just wanted to tell you all that. Sorry, we see anything just I've lost both mine. That's really hard. That's so hard. I have to. Yeah. It's hard. I'm older than you, so that makes it hard. It's yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's hard. So that's all. I don't know anything social media, but I hope you will update me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume the meeting. Okay, Courtney, I'm sorry for the false alarm. You can start again.
All right, good evening. To the board members that I haven't yet had a chance to meet, my name is Courtney Crouch. I hail from Golden, Colorado, but not originally. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Don't hold that against me. But married a native Coloradan, so that's what brought me here. I have been invited into the Woodland Park School District as a contract CFO, and will work with the school board and with the administration in the finance department. I am going to give a brief audit update. I am not the independent auditor who conducted the audit, so an actual audit brief is most appropriately presented by the independent auditor themselves. So what I am here to do is to let you know that the audit has been submitted. It was submitted on March 3rd. After an intensive data pipeline submission through the Colorado Department of Education was completed prior to that March 3rd submission. Other than that, there really isn't a whole lot for me to say. I can answer questions related to the process that Woodland Park School District went to support the audit for the independent auditor, but again, it's more appropriate for the auditors themselves to speak to the findings in the audit. I believe that findings report was filed on March 1st.
I do have a question. How will you approach, we've had a number of concerns about the audit. I couldn't hear you. What?
No, you're going to ask my question.
So how will you approach addressing the issues that were found with the independent auditor? Is there a process you're going to go through, be as detailed or general as you need to be, so?
Sure. I've done this work with other schools in the past. Typically, the approach, especially when they provide a list of findings, is to start there. And those list of findings will help us identify curative actions that can be taken to ensure that whatever the findings are addressing no longer occur. And that can be from needing to identify someone who needs to come in and fill a position in order to make sure that the accounting is being done correctly, to monthly updates to the board that begin to focus on financial transparency that may have been identified in the audit. The accounting procedures outlining internal controls that allow for roles to be separated or functions to be separated between different roles is a huge piece of that. So making sure that the individual who's doing the bookkeeping and the ARAP is not the individual who's doing the reconciling, is not the individual who's generating the budget. So identifying where those internal controls can be built into the processes that support the financial policies of the board is going to be part of that work. It will take some time, and there are a number of issues that will probably take more time than where we will end up being by the time this audit year closes.
What did you find? I mean, you've reviewed this at least to some extent. What are the things you're going to work on first? I mean, separating the people from doing the job so that there's no crossover that might not be appropriate, or where will you start?
Yeah, that's a lot of times that's as simple as redefining the job description for someone and making sure that they understand what their function is within their role.
Okay. How will you be open in your reporting? I mean, transparency is so overused these days. I like open, wide open, and so that we can see the information. How does that look to you?
It generally consists of financial statements that are made up of a number of different types of reports. Generally to the board, you'll see more of a rolled up report. You won't see the individual accounting detail. But I would say to the board, if that is what you want to see, then that is how it should be prepared. But profit and loss statements, which take the actual numbers year to date compared to the budgeted numbers, balance sheet when compared to previous year, cash flow statements, variance reports, any types of key metrics that you're wanting to focus on, a key metrics or KPI type of report that's generated from the information in the P&L and balance sheet.
Just one more before then I'll be quiet. The big elephant in the room about finances right now is what are we going to do, and how do you foresee approaching our budget with a $3 million shortfall from sales tax money? Open and honest, transparent. We got lots of people in the room want to know.
Yeah.
What did you say? I didn't hear what. I can't hear it.
It's gonna take her a while.
Oh, that's a fine answer.
Mr. Ruster-Holtz, if I can jump in.
That's an okay answer.
We actually started having meetings today. We've got kind of a two-pronged approach that we're looking at. The first immediate thing is how are we going to get through the rest of the year? The second thing is how are we budgeting for next year? And so we've already kind of started having meetings, and I talked to the principals this morning. We're going to have, once we get all the bank reconciliations completed, we're going to have a meeting with them next week, and we're really going to work together to address what the budget needs, how we need to address the budgets for their buildings for next year. And then as far as this year goes, we're still working through those bank reconciliations. We'll know, again, Ms. Crouch and I are fairly new into these particular roles, And so we are having those conversations going on. We'll have better answers for you soon.
Okay. I just wanted to address it, to bring it out there. I know it's gonna take a while, but, you know, I just wanted to get it out there.
So I don't necessarily have questions for you, although I do really appreciate the answers that you've already provided. It shows a commitment to working through this very difficult situation and again, being transparent and following proper procedures. So I appreciate that. But I also appreciate the fact that you weren't necessarily here when all of this happened and when the audit was being conducted. So my questions are more for our discussion as a board in the issues around the audit. And again, Mr. Smith, you were not necessarily involved in all of that. So again, my questions are more for us. You know, Ms. Hart, you mentioned that you did not prepare the audit and that it is proper for the person who actually conducted the audit to be here to give the report. I agree with that 100%. That's what makes sense. And I actually reached out to our auditing company today to get some answers since I knew they weren't going to be here. But one of the interesting parts of the conversation was that coming here to this meeting to go through the full audit, someone who has the knowledge who can actually answer questions for us, is part of the service we pay for. We already paid for it, and they were told not to come. What? That I would like to know who would have been the person who would have told our audit company not to attend the meeting where the audit discussion was on the agenda.
That's what the company said? They were
Yes.
told not to
They
come?
said they were shocked. They couldn't believe that an audit that had 83 journal entries we didn't want them to be here.
Who did you speak to?
Person
Why not
who-
answer?
Chris?
Yeah. Yep. So, and then, you know, just to kind of call out, because I don't know if you all read through the whole audit, because it wasn't in our board packet. But so there were 83 journal entries. That's the issues that come up as they're going through kind of the field work, right? The things that are submitted and they go, and this isn't right, and it's sent back to be fixed. So 83 instances. For comparison, last year we had 23 issues, so from 23 to 83. Generally speaking, again, there's no average, but generally speaking, when they hit 12 is when they start to get concerned about what's happening. So again, kind of a huge issue there. There were 16 material issues that they called out. I know there's been some information going around that there's like 34. I think the 34 breaks down the 16 into different pieces is what's happening there. Just after reading through the whole audit, that's what it seems. But there are some really, really, really concerning things that I found, especially around the grants. That our grants, the expenditures and revenues were not properly reviewed. My biggest concern is that we may be on the hook to paying them back. When I worked in nonprofits, I had to submit reports, copy checks and receipts from things that we used the grant money for, and then submit that and get approval. And if it was an item that they didn't approve, you know, we didn't get that money. In this instance, we got a lot of that money ahead of time, but you have to show how you used it.
And no grants got reported. She's right. No grants got reported. So.
Can you speak up? What do you mean no grants were reported?
That's according to Chris Banta. He said that's part of the issue, that the grants were not reported to the state.
Right, yes, yeah.
So just confirming what you said.
Yeah, so there were 27 state and federal awarded grants that the balance revenue and expenditures were not reported. Over 10 grants where they were not properly reviewed for revenue, 9 grants that showed that collectively receivables exceeding $1,006,000 could not be substantiated. So I am concerned that we're gonna be on the hook to pay it back.
Sure.
So that was one. The ESSER grant was another one there that was not properly, reported. And talking with Chris, he did say that, he'd be willing, or not him, but,
It's
Tim?
his partner, yeah.
Tom,
like,
I
Tom.
believe.
Whoever his partner is, I forget his name, I apologize. He would come to the next meeting. So I highly suggest that we invite them to come. We've already paid for the services. They're the experts. They can take us through it. They can dispel some of the other concerns that I think maybe are getting blown up. Basically, from the conversation and also reading through all of the issues in the report, incompetency and a lack of qualified personnel and then just not enough personnel are our major issues. I think those are solvable issues, but we need to take action immediately. We need to bring in a full-time CFO, not saying you're not wonderful. We need to make sure we have somebody who's here, who's dedicated to this and this is what they do. And we need to make sure we have somebody who is a expert in grants.
Yes.
Immediately.
Well, no, that'd be two different positions.
It would be
You're
two
right.
different positions, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, but I just wanted to say something to you. I apologize if I came across as putting you on the spot or anything. I really didn't mean to do that in any way or to try to embarrass you in any way. So please accept my apology.
That's okay. And I am here to support you. So, and the administration and the interim superintendent. So please feel free to reach out with questions.
No, we thank you for jumping in and even finishing the audit and getting it in. And I heard and reading this, you had some issues on March 1st with the website, so that's why the delay happened. And then I also heard there was some stuff going on with the data pipeline process. Can you explain more about that and just how that goes and what you do in the audit for that reason?
So the data pipeline is the data submission platform for all districts and charter schools to enter all of their financial transactions for the year. And it's broken into very specific account coding per the Colorado Department of Education's chart of accounts. And those files are submitted electronically. They're just like with any kind of migration of information from one system into another, there are generally a number of errors that are produced. There are two levels or two tiers of errors. The first tier that you have to clear are the coding errors. So if one code isn't matching another code and the system is expecting to see it a certain way and it's not that way, it'll kick back error codes to you. Those error codes can take anywhere between 2 to 3 days to a number of weeks to clear, depending on what they are. So in working through it, I had those cleared in about 10 hours. Then we move into tier 2 codes, which have more to do with business issues. So like if your balances aren't, if your balance sheet items aren't balancing, so if assets don't equal liability plus equity, then those are the kind of tier 2 errors that you have to go in and clear. And those can generally take a little bit longer because those are a little bit more nuanced. So, and then once all of those are cleared, you have to generate what's called an auditor's integrity report that then matches with what the independent auditor has. The independent auditors work separately from the data pipeline. The data pipeline is the responsibility of the district. The independent audit is the responsibility of the independent auditor that you guys retain. And so at the end of the day, the auditor's independent or the integrity report that is generated by the data pipeline has to marry up with what the auditors have. So, and when they don't, you've got to go back in and figure out why.
Thank you.
Just one. consider while, the auditors did say that they suspect that most of the issues were around that, incompetence and error. Given the current climate of the community, it may be a good idea for us to have a forensic audit done by an independent agent so that we can definitively rule out fraud, which I think is a fear of a lot of people. So
Do you know the cost of that? Should we find that out?
I don't. We should look into that. Maybe that's something we can, instruct you, but maybe as a board, we can instruct you to look into that. Our audit company does not do those. I did ask. The other thing they said they wanted to do, as we do look for a permanent CFO, they said if we want to at least let them know the names of our potential candidates, they're willing to kind of give their opinion.
That'd be great.
What they know about them through the finance community. They did happen to mention that if we had asked about the previous CFO, they would not have recommended.
You may.
Thank you. I think that's great. I'll look into the cost of forensic audit and work, really like working with Chris Benson. We do have the CFO position posted, and so we're actively looking for that. And then Ms. Crouch and I were talking earlier today about how she mentioned tonight kind of better segmenting those job duties to make sure that we get the separation duties that we need. We were actually talking tonight about how we're going to be segmenting that. I'm really hoping to have the finance position posted next week. Trying to restructure a lot of how that finance department works, since this is one sliver of that. But I know she and I have been having conversations about that today. We're moving forward because we do recognize how integral that is to the success of the finance department.
Another, I'm sorry, Kenzie.
No, I was just gonna add to what you're saying. So, I also have talked to Chris Britta, and so I was gonna ask, Mr. Saul, if you could also add to your list, making sure that some of it was the training for the teachers grant that we got. There was, a lot with the policies and the travel policies, and there's supposed to be forms that need to be used, and who will monitor those, like just any sort of monitoring with these. And so that might be, another issue that we can just easily start knocking off and starting, as soon as possible.
My only other thing,
Sorry.
as you go through the search for the CFO and maybe even the grants, given again everything that's happening, and whether or not you're deciding you're going to stay, may behoove us as a board to be part of the interview process, not necessarily making final decisions, because final decisions on personnel other than our superintendent is not necessarily with us, but in reviewing maybe the applications or maybe participating in the interview process.
Yes. Thank you.
I
Keegan. Okay, next item, UPass BOCES update. Mr. Salt?
Thank you, Mr. Bates. So forgive me for not having a lot of information about this. I can give you kind of the email blurb that I got for now. So we were able to get an agreement done. I know there was some back and forth on whether we get the agreement done or not. And so what we've come to agreements with the other districts was that we would be able to have effectively a BOCES, but including Cripple Creek and Woodland Park, where we'd have an executive director that was partially employed by the BOCES, partially employed by Woodland Park, and then all of the other employees, the SPED providers, would be directly hired through Woodland Park, and then would service the students coming from both Cripple Creek and our own students. And then we will have be a director at large that'll be invited to join the board, and so it'll be partially made up of Woodland Park board members, Cripple Creek board members, and then one at-large member that would represent the community to round out the 5-member board for that particular BOCES. Today was the day that we needed to submit that to the state. I confirmed that it was submitted this morning. Seen some chatter going around today that now we need a resolution from UPass BOCES to kind of affirm that decision. that date is still pending, but they have granted us time to allow the UPass BOCES to have the resolution they need to be able to, I don't know if you can speak to that or not, but effectively wind down the UPass BOCES and allow this BOCES between us and Cripple Creek to stand up.
Correct me here. I thought that Manitou was gonna have to come back. I mean, that was the whole reason this started. Manitou wanted to leave. They are not gonna re-engage.
There was discussions on whether or not, because they did not know if this resolution would pass between Cripple Creek and
Right.
Woodland Park, and so we thought Manitou would have to come back, but they don't want that. This option allows them to be independent, so.
Very good. That helps.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Salt. Item C is the superintendent position. Let me just comment briefly. What has taken place here in the last days? When we originally accepted Mr. Witt's resignation, it was effective the 7th. But we had agreed in there that we would stretch out his time here with the original intent being some overlap, so that we're not, one person's not leaving, another's coming, and there's nothing, no communication whatsoever. So nothing has been done towards that effort because it wasn't as urgent the first of the week. So no plans have been made. Something I'm going to do is reach out to Candace. We did this with Kelly. If there were things that had kind of been a traditional avenue in the past that, she'd look them up for me so I could review what these processes were, and we could decide if that is what we would still like. That is the only thing that has been discussed, is to review from the past superintendent searches, and then we could take that data and potentially adjust it as needed. But that is all the data I have based on this.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that we did previously, or that when we looked at the hiring process, were some of the things that were mentioned tonight, that there were members of the community, there were parents of students. I don't recall if there were students involved, but I know that was one of the suggestions this evening. But I would like to see community input in it. And, the District Accountability Committee has all of those kind of people involved with it. So I don't know if that would be a resource for those people or not, or, from outside of it.
And I think, and I don't want to mention the person's name, but the person who brought up the list, there's a few of them, but the first one we heard, I think you can include the DAC, but adding a few more of those. And then I would also add to that list, to his list, principals, which I think were left out. And someone that would move to the district. I think the community piece is a big part of it. And so they're going to hear that as well. And so I had some other notes, so I'll continue, but not to cut you off.
Yeah, I like the requirement of someone who lives in the community.
For that position, David?
For superintendent.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. That they would.
So
that
would be a requirement.
Yeah.
Full-time employee.
Cassie, you had more you were saying.
I wrote some stuff down during the stuff, so I'm trying to find my other addition to the list, so continue, go ahead.
Okay, so, had some notes on this. I think we need to schedule, maybe even look at calendars tonight, whether it's during the actual session or after the fact, but schedule work sessions. I think we're gonna need several, because we need, there's lots of laws around hiring a superintendent. And the first ones we need to figure out, while I think it's good to see what we did in the past, we need to have a public meeting, that's again by law, where we work together as a board to write the job description. So covering the qualifications we want to see and what things we want them to cover. Of course, there are standard superintendent roles, right, jobs, but we need to set specific things. Like we can require, and I've seen it in other job descriptions across Colorado, where they want the superintendent to live in the community, whether that's they're here now or willing to move. That's a pretty common thing. But we'll need to establish, all those, any of those requirements. We'll need to set deadlines, like when we're going to post the job. Is it going to be open until filled, or do we have a cutoff time? So we need to figure those things out. We also need to figure out and create our selection procedures. So we need to write those out, make sure those are very clearly defined. And then, of course, those timeframes if we're trying to get them to start, when we're looking to have someone start. And as I said, typically, it's 3 to 5 months once the job is posted to hire. So from posting date to contract signed, 3 to 5 months. 3 to 5. We can go quicker if we buckle down. And that's one of the things I wanted to say. Like when I ran for school board, I accepted the challenge. Right, that was a challenge to run. When I was sworn in, I accepted that challenge and I made the commitment to the students and this community to do everything I could to help make Woodland Park School District better for everyone. And so tonight I wanted to reaffirm that commitment and to the community and to the rest of you up here that I am willing to do whatever it takes to make sure we find a qualified superintendent, that we can move forward from this place that we are in right now. So I'll attend any of those working sessions, to figure out what our job description looks like and what our process is to complete those comprehensive interviews. But then I just have the ask that you all make that commitment as well. Obviously, not only can I not do it on my own, but I'm not allowed to. So I need everybody else to make that commitment as well.
I think a good place to start is to grab the documentation like you're talking about, and then the work session would be to work through those and edit and to come up with those with the board.
That would be the beginning, yes.
Those were all part of the timeline. All the things that you mentioned were part of that hiring process that we had, that I've seen in the past for our superintendents. That each one of those things, or a variation of it, were included. And just to bring it out, normally this takes place in December, is when superintendents are beginning to look for new locations, and hirings begin November, December timeline. So we're a bit out of sync for that, but we'll see where it goes.
We are. There are still, I did some research on current openings in Colorado. So there have been 7 this year. I think there's 3 still open. All but one of the 7 that have been posted this year used a outside agency to assist in this process. McPherson and Jacobson is the one that.
Yeah, that's a common one that we've used before as well.
So I would recommend we reach out to them at least to see.
Say the name again.
McPherson. Jacobson.
That's who we use.
Yeah. Most of the school districts in Colorado use them. So they know everybody, they know how this works. And I think they could help us maybe speed up the process. The other thing, again, to try and get the community involved is we should, or I would like us to send out a survey to the district parents and employees to get their kind of feedback on what they're looking for. So yes, we should have a committee that's representative, but we can also send out a survey and get more of that feedback so we have a better understanding of what we're looking for.
Okay. You act like you've done this before.
Couple times.
Thank you, Keegan. Something that we're up against, and it just is what it is, but, finding a CFO that is willing to drive up here or relocate up here is difficult. I mean, it's a difficult search. It was a difficult search when Jack was hired, Mr. Bay was hired. The opportunity we had was not very encouraging. And then Mr. Bay came along, and clearly he wasn't the right person, but he had background in schools. This other person didn't even have any background in schools. So it was a difficult search the first time. We are committed to doing that. We've got to get a CFO on board, as do we need to get a grant writer in. That was one of the things Mr. Banta spoke about pretty quickly. So we will work on that process. And I mean, the same thing applies to the superintendent, but I wasn't involved in the first in hiring Mr. Witt, so this will be a first. But Keegan made some very good points, and many on this board have the knowledge for us to forge ahead on that transparently and find the right candidate. You mentioned a list of 7, and there were 3 left. I want number 1. I want the first
But
one.
it's schools, not applicants.
Oh.
7 schools that are.
Oh, it's at school. I said there were 7 candidates.
No.
I'm sorry.
I do want to thank Courtney.
I still want number 1.
Again, Courtney here for doing her time while we do find someone that we were not having that gap. So, but that is a very important thing that we are looking for. So thank you.
And I would offer too, it is really difficult to find financial experts in the public arena, let alone public school arena. And I would be.
Do you want a mic?
Oh, no, not really. But I would be more than happy to work alongside someone you identify as, yes, this person has great potential and is willing to relocate here or lives here, but to work alongside them as long as it takes to really.
That would be very helpful. We appreciate all you've done, Courtney. I know you've been burning the midnight oil, and you've done good. Thank you very much.
One other thing we can do, and this is something I do in my profession, is we can promote the job, not just on our job board, right? I don't know if any of you up here are on LinkedIn, but that's a good place to post things. I'm happy to post our job descriptions just to call more attention to it. Since I am in the hiring business, I have connections across the country and through various professions. I've worked with, I have to reach out. I have worked with hiring CFOs for private sector things before. But if we're open to it, it could be something that we could ask the community. We could draft up kind of like a pitch, right? Like, hey, come to Woodland Park, right? We'll make it jazzy and post it, and then ask our community to share it with their networks as well. Because we're going to reach far, far more people if we kind of pull in the community to help us do that. If we can come up with something, it can be our marketing group that can help craft that so we know it's, common messaging. When we have everyone using the same post, and we can just share it on Facebook and on LinkedIn and just get the message out there to help us fill it more quickly.
That's a good idea. I might be wrong here, but I saw the other day a name that someone suggested using, and it begins with an "and." Does that mean anything to you? It seemed like a pretty common name.
Name of a candidate or a name
No,
of
a firm that would help, a group that helps. What's that?
Are you talking about LinkedIn?
No, it was like NASB or something like that. I had never heard the term, but you haven't either, so thank you.
Not NASB. It was a hiring firm?
Yes, it was someone that helps with superintendent searches. I could find it again.
Yeah,
Just-
I can look
just
into
can't-
it as well.
Okay.
I haven't heard them.
Anything else on the superintendent position? I think that for me personally, this CFO position is, everyone is needed now, but I would really like to focus on the CFO position at the same time in tandem, work considering the ideas you had and others of you had. So I think we would probably take a special meeting to work out the details of this,
A work session.
job description.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully in the next week, maybe 2 weeks, we could set up a meeting for that with plenty of notice, and we will sit down and come up with a plan. Is everyone comfortable with that?
I mean, sooner the better. I'm around.
All right. Anything else on that? Okay. Next item was merit.
Well, the building, the facility,
Okay,
not Merit Academy,
Kind of
but the building.
same thing.
Not the same thing.
We are, the reason I pulled it off of the agenda tonight was, it's gonna be a process to see where we end up from where we are right now. We're gonna have to work through that and have a plan as to how we're going to move ahead. There is not currently a plan. I mean, we lost the IGA money, and so, you know, it's a problem now. But we are going to regroup and revisit this issue and do it much more publicly, and, you know, see if we can come to any kind of a mutual agreement as to where we go from here. You know, I think Merit, as much as any of our other schools, deserve to excel. They're gonna have another 100 students next year. I mean, they're meeting with success. And we're glad to have Merit in our group. So we need to regroup on this and talk about rekindling that discussion and go from there.
And I mean, I just want to interject, but it's, we need a superintendent, a CFO, and
Right.
after the whole audit situation, I think we need to look through everything in our assets and talk to the community and have open discussion about it.
About our assets, our buildings, or just in
All of
general?
it in general.
After, not.
So, a couple of times in your comments right there, you said, you used the word we. We need to regroup. We need to see, you know, talk about where we are now and where we want to go. I wish I wasn't always asking this question, but who is we? Who
Well,
was part of this discussion? Who initiated this? Who drafted the proposed plan that was going to be on the board agenda for today? Where were these discussions happening? Because they were not happening in an official capacity.
Well, there were discussions behind the scenes. I mean,
Why?
Huh? Well, to try to get some direction on this.
But whose brainchild was this? Who said, hey, we should even start looking into this?
Well, most of the people at this table had agreed that Merit needs to find a way to proceed ahead and maintain longevity. That's been a discussion for some time about that.
So are you saying everybody else at this table was part of the conversation to have that proposal?
I don't know if everyone was, but it has been discussed.
But not with me. So we weren't having these conversations in the proper form. We were breaking our own policy by having those conversations not in the public forum, and that is unacceptable.
Yes.
Noted.
I was not a part of the discussions. This discussion was a lot to do with Kenwit, with our administration, the people in the different buildings, our financials. So it wasn't us behind the scenes doing it. So I did not meet with Ken, but promises, we made promises for school choice. And I will continue down that road. We need school choice, and we're looking at financial decisions, and this needs to be discussed, and it needs to go forward.
Well, I don't know that it needs to go forward. I would say if it needs to be discussed, it needs to happen at these meetings or at work sessions. It needs to include the community. We cannot continue to make decisions behind the scenes. Everyone else but me, because I'm not involved in that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why we're in the position we are. This is why we've lost $3 million in funding. And it's not just this last agenda item, right? That was the straw that broke the camel's back. It has been issue after issue after issue that myself as a parent in this community find emails on Friday afternoons, and all of a sudden, the entire school district is different. And we have lost the trust of this community, and we need to work really hard to get it back. And I messaged you, Mick, on Friday when the board agenda came out and the packet came out, and I begged you to change it to a discussion item, and you never even responded.
I didn't. I did. Quiet, please. If you do it again, we will just clear the room and finish this meeting, and don't test me.
Outside of the public, though.
Well, that is within, that is.
This is a board meeting in the public. It's our meeting. So we appreciate it if you showed some decorum.
You know what? I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna leave from this because this is ridiculous.
Thank you.
This is ridiculous. All of us, it's just us, but this is them.
Okay.
This is them.
Thank you.
You are our representatives. You are our representatives, Sue Patterson.
And it's illegal. There are laws.
Keep doing it.
Keep having your forums and your illegal agendas. Keep doing it. I will see you back in court. This is a policy that is handled in the public. This is our meeting, our discussion.
And it is legal, and we didn't make those rules. Those are rules that, the last time I read them was in, CASB. That is a ongoing system. All right, moving, let's move along here.
No, Mick, I'd like to say one thing about the city, about the sales tax. Prior to this board being elected, the Woodland Park School District had to present a financial report to the city council once a year. Since COVID and the discussions that we had 2 years ago, no reports were done. Nobody noticed until this board got on and
look at the results of
and
your
the
audit.
and
Please.
Sorry, but look at it.
and the city council forced our hand into an idea that we almost couldn't agree with and went from yearly financial report of a pie chart to monthly reports. It was an intergovernmental agreement between two elected bodies. And the law states that as long as we fulfilled what was on, and we sent over a bad report, we cured it with a 140-page document. That sufficed.
Quiet, please.
The city council. The law stipulates in that the city council cannot raise taxes about the people, but they can take tax away. The problem is that the reasons I took that money away had nothing to do, they don't have the authority to micromanage or run the school, which they want to do.
So, I'm gonna stop you there. Going back to our audit,
This is not a I'm just getting off track.
Fine. All right. Yeah,
We need to keep this on track here.
did not accurately reverse sales tax accruals or record year-end sales of tax accruals. There is no system of controls in place related to the sales tax revenues and receivables. That was part of our audit. Those are the audit findings. So if we want to talk about why people are upset and why the sales tax went away, it's because we could not show in any form, not even in the audit, that we were doing the right thing with that money.
Yes. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not saying that's your fault, not saying it's necessarily anyone up here. We didn't hire the right people, which, that comes up to us eventually, but we didn't have the right people in place. And then we didn't own up to it and try and do everything we could to solve it. We kept pushing buttons. We're here now. But let's get back to the agenda item.
Well, yeah, let's focus on the school building. My personal thoughts are the city council has no jurisdiction over these buildings. They are not city buildings, they are district buildings. So my only thought to that is, they had absolutely no business delving into that.
Well,
And-
okay, again, though, they never said you couldn't sell the building. What they said was, you're not allowed to sell a building with a contract that states that the sales tax can never even be changed for the next 30 years.
I do.
That is why they pulled it. Because if they didn't pull it and it went through and it was approved at tonight's meeting, they would have zero recourse to stop the taxpayers from paying for that building twice.
Yes. Is there anything else? Like I said, we need to, this discussion just, I mean, it has to begin again.
It's a $35 million building, not five.
Sir, if it was brand new, yes.
Have
It is
we-
not brand new.
Wait.
Sorry,
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Do we, whoever was involved in this discussion, was evaluation done on the building?
No, it was not.
So we
There-
set a sales price without doing
There have
evaluation?
been professionals that have said they thought around 7 million, but the building also needs about $3 million worth of improvements that are
Property is
necessary.
worth more than that. In any discussion, like, we need.
We need discussion,
facts.
but we need a presentation.
We
This
need
is
facts.
all too raw and too early. We need to gather the facts together and have a
I
presentation.
mean, basically, yeah.
And I think that's where the discussion needs
I
to go.
think we need to table this until we have a superintendent and a CFO and an audit person.
And a November election.
Pardon?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Maybe
it's a
wait
discussion.
till we have taken care of the
There's no
most
action.
immediately important.
Well, those are
There's no
first
action
and
for your
foremost.
Well, no one asked me if I want to discuss these things. What I'm saying, while I have the opportunity to say so, is I think whoever we is should not look into this any further until we have filled our superintendent position.
I hadn't even thought about that, to be honest with you. That is our most critical thing, is the CFO, superintendent. But I don't want to just have this go away. I don't think I'm prepared to just table it. I think it's going to be a long process. I think we need to begin that. We should be able to do them all. They're all very serious, big things. But, we've seen here lately, there's so much more to do as it is. So, we've got our work cut out.
All right. Well, whenever these discussions start, it should be at a working session meeting with the whole board.
Understood, and I said we would do that, have a special meeting or a work session.
And a presentation.
Well, we won't have a presentation yet. We gotta sit down and discuss.
Well, I'm echoing what Sue said, having the presentation presented.
Mhm. I do agree with that. But that wouldn't be the first thing.
No, and then anytime before any action items are ever put on the agenda again, we should make sure we are listing them properly, so it's not hidden behind vague terms. It should say resolution to sell the building, not just facilities issue. And nothing in that resolution should be a surprise to anyone.
I hear you. Believe me, I do hear you. Anything else?
I think that it's important that the history of why it came to this point is known, and maybe a quick review of that would be important, would be good for the public to hear, for the rest of the board members to hear. Sue and I were the only ones on the board when we chartered Merritt Academy. And there was a concern, there was a lot of, there were things that I learned. I was the president at the time. Looking back, I was very naive, and I was on a learning curve of how to manage that and how it all happened. Had I were able to go back again, I would do some of those things differently. The way that we chartered, we tried to do it quickly, as from advice from our superintendent at the time. It ended up.
Matthew Neal.
Matthew Neal was the superintendent at that time. So I'm just trying to give a historic background, what happened and what led to which I was not part of that, but I'm trying to give, here's what happened. We tried to do it quicker through a memorandum of understanding with Merit Academy. It ended up taking longer than the normal process would have taken. And so part of all chartering Merit Academy was that they needed a home. They needed a facility that would be their facility. So as they've been a school growing and very popular within our district, and a fast-growing school, one of the fastest growing schools on the Front Range, they're very popular. They're very successful in what they're doing. They're also a public school within our district. They had a valid concern that they wanted to assure the parents and their students that they would have an ongoing place, that they would be secure in a building, that they didn't have to worry about another board coming along and not chartering them, or that another board would come along and say you can no longer use this facility. So they wanted to put some things into place. I am guessing that is why this resolution has come along, to secure that position and to secure their future facilities. Personally, I think that it was a jump. It shouldn't have been done that way. There was a lot of pressure and to have the resolution. I was not part of that. I did not know about it until.
Everybody has said that.
No. Do you want me to be open and honest?
Quiet, please.
No, wait. I'm talking to you, but I am being open about this. I'm not hiding anything right now. So any criticism of me, I'm just telling you what the history is. So this resolution came about as a part of securing their facilities. That's all that I know about it. I can guess who wrote it, but I don't know for sure. I wasn't told. There is my open, honest answer. I was opposed to it. I didn't think that it should be done this way. I think that Merit should be secure in having a building. I think everybody would say here that there shouldn't be any kind of, talking to you guys, there shouldn't be a worry that the school doesn't have a home. And so I would like to see a discussion, a public discussion of our Board of Education is how do we make them secure both in their charter and in their home? So that parents, teachers there know what's going to go on in the future and it's not some shaky thing that they have to worry about. So I would like to ask that, yes, we have public discussion of how we go forward. So there's a brief history of it, and that's why I think it came to this. It was done in a way that I think it should have been done differently, but let's do it right going forward.
And I don't think anyone questions someone wanting security, right? Like that's pretty universal need. If we're talking Maslow, right? We want security. But wanting something does not give you the right to take it. Does not give you the right to take it. That's stealing.
I'm not sure what you mean. Who is taking and who's stealing?
You were saying that the reason this resolution was written is because the Merit families wanted a building, and so they pressured the district.
I do not think that happened at all. That's not what I was saying in any way. I don't know that Merit was even involved in it. I think that someone wrote it, proposed it.
Who wrote it?
I would only be guessing.
Okay.
So,
who wrote it?
So, I don't know. I just said I didn't know. So anyway, Merit Academy.
Please be quiet.
Already enough on the agenda.
Excuse me, people, I can't hear the board.
Who sent it to you to put it into the
You're
board packet?
Well, let me think. Hasn't been that long ago. There was some limited discussion about it. When it came out, there were questions. Pardon?
By whom?
Well, I'm trying to think. Cassie was there, she heard about it. Ken Witt was there, and the attorney, Brad Miller, was there.
And you? So, but I didn't see
Yes.
the resolution until even after the board packet.
No, we didn't, but that's my fault for not reviewing it before it
But
went
I
out.
didn't see the board.
You didn't even, so, I'm sorry, so had you even read the do you read the resolutions
Yes,
before they
yeah.
come out?
Keegan, yes, I do.
Okay, well,
And,
I'm sorry if that seems like a dumb question, but from what you just said, that made me wonder.
I'm sorry, I just can't hear.
I'm not, like, maybe not conducting myself as well as I usually do, but I'm pretty angry about this. And I just want, how did this happen? Who, like, what is normal procedure for sending out board packets?
well, we have an agenda setting meeting. That's the Thursday after this meeting. We have
And
the
that's you
agenda
and the
setting meeting.
superintendent, correct?
Pardon?
That's you and the superintendent?
And generally another board member, generally two board members and the
just me.
superintendent, which is Sue. We put together preliminary agenda, pardon?
And it was not decided, when I was in the conversation, it was not just decided yet I hadn't seen the resolution to put it on. And
But did you
So
know
I
that
was-
it existed?
I knew the talk was there, but
Okay, so you
So
knew
I
they were
didn't-
discussing it, you knew they were discussing it, Cassie, you knew they were discussing, whether you saw the resolution or not, you were part of the
And
conversations.
yesterday, I found out that
part of the
our
agenda
administration did not even know about it. So there's one person who wrote it, and he's not in this room anymore.
So who wrote it?
But he's your employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Ian.
Thank you for telling us. We really appreciate you guys being on.
So since he has left, and I think everyone, well, maybe not, but I shouldn't assume, he clearly, in my mind, had conflicts of interest with that in those discussions. And I think since he's the one that initiated it, and is it true that no board member instructed him to do that? He was rogue on that?
No one did. It was a concern that was starting, some research was beginning to take place on.
Okay.
And I did see the resolution and I commented on a couple of things in there. But we moved ahead. I mean, there was and is some urgency to try to help them, but that didn't justify where we're at today.
Okay, so you had read the resolution and didn't decide to pull it even?
Let me think when I first saw the resolution. I don't recall when I first saw it. It wasn't that old of a document. It was pretty fresh document.
Can we maybe just follow board policy going forward, that we don't have these back deal conversations, that all board members are included, that our next superintendent will not go rogue and run off and try and sell off our assets, which he doesn't have the right to do? And that if we ever have one that does, we're going to hold them 100% accountable?
Certainly that's the case. I mean, hindsight's 20/20. Let me say one more thing. Let me say one more thing to y'all. Clearly, some changes need to be made. I spent numerous hours at the admin office yesterday, speaking with Mr. Salt. Everyone understands that we've got some adjustments, some serious, to make. And I got a commitment from Mr. Salt, and I was committed to, we've got to change this up. You know, how many times we need to get bit in the behind to change this? So, you know, but I can say anything I want. The proof will be in the pudding if we start making some positive changes to remedy these things. We have to.
Yeah, I still want to comment about stealing a facility. Merritt Academy needs to be, it's one of our district schools. And they should not have to worry about whether they're going to be chartered or whether they have a facility to use in the future.
Do you
Just like
think
any of
they
our other
worry
ones.
any more than any of our other buildings do? I mean, we've ripped buildings out of the hands of other students. So none of the students in this district have any security that the building they are currently in will be there tomorrow.
Well, I would disagree with that because, let me just say, well, let me say
quiet,
why.
please.
Let me just say why. Most of our buildings, most of our schools were under capacity. They were underutilized buildings. And so since 2012, school district, that's when I believe the first time that the Board of Education had to decide whether we needed to consolidate elementary schools. That's been an ongoing conversation for quite some time. So when our schools are getting pretty low in their occupancy, I thought it was responsible. I don't like the way we did it, but it was responsible that we consolidated schools. I wanted the Board of Education to be involved in that decision-making, not just administratively done. But I need to get back to the point of what I was saying, is that Summit doesn't have to worry about it. The high school and the middle school don't have to worry about it. We're one thing here. We don't have to worry about Columbine. None of them have to worry about it. There's only one school right now that has to be concerned because a future Board of Education could do something to put an end to it. They wouldn't put an end to, then they would have no place to go. All that I would like to see, and it was from the beginning when we first chartered the school, that they be on equal playing field, equal to all the other schools because they're a public school and they should be secure in their facility and their charter.
Let me add another facet to that. When Mr. Neal was here, they hired a consulting firm to take a look at this situation, the very thing we're talking about, underutilized schools.
They did.
And their recommendations were to do what we just did, for the most part.
It was an option. It was not actually recommended unless we had many public hearings about it. That was the.
Well, they recommended a path forward, but it was one of the things, when we had the presentation, that was one of the things that they did suggest because our facilities were underutilized.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we should utilize our facilities appropriately, but the fact is we do have our sixth graders in outbuildings at both the elementary schools because there isn't enough room at those buildings. And we have kids who live close to this area getting bused that they have to drive to Columbine to get on a bus to go all the way out to Summit because there's no room at Columbine for them. People that live in the Columbine district, there isn't room for them. They have to go out to Summit. New people that have moved in. So I'm not saying we didn't need to consolidate because some of the buildings were more empty, but this wasn't the best way. And that's beyond the point because really the only point I was making is that we have pulled buildings out from under students in the past from the traditional public schools. And so security is something that all of our students need. And so we need to do that with equity.
Well, that's what I was gonna.
It needs to be equitable.
That's what I was gonna ask you. I was just gonna ask you, do you think that they should be, that Merritt Academy should be secure in their facilities?
I think all of our students should be, yes.
Right, I do.
But but they're there now, and it doesn't mean they need to buy the building for pennies on the dollar, right? We need to make sure we have evaluation, need to make sure we have the proper conversation, and the fact that this resolution was out there with the terms that were already in there when there had been zero public conversation is why there was an issue.
Yes, I agree.
So I think to wrap this up, a work session as well, like we just need.
Well, I think this has been a great conversation. It's exposed a lot, and now we need to talk about a path forward for discussing it.
Well, as I said before, we need to have a meeting about just that issue. You know, I don't think we want to have, and I know we're all meetinged out, but you know, to combine the superintendent and the school building is not good. So it's going to take two different work sessions or special meetings to sit down and hash some of this out. So everyone needs to be giving some thought to their ideas so that it would help us to push forward to actually sitting down and talking about the pros and cons of this.
I'm available all next week.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
I'm available too.
Information?
We did the board.
Oh, yeah,
reports.
we did it.
Yeah, there's nothing else. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Barkley?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Kimbrell?
Aye.
Patterson? Westerholt?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you expanding the public comment time so that everybody was able to speak to us.
I mean, there was some hot button issues. This was an appropriate time to go further. So having a couple of people suggested it, but, you know, people need to be up there, so. Thank you for the notes. I understand that.
If you need
I'm glad you forgot everything. Come up with some.
It's gonna give you. I did.
Sorry, but yeah.
Because of my helping.
We'll reach out, can reach out to you. It is, they made some mistakes. Yeah, so many things.